All right, this is the noob, and in this talk, I'm just going to be giving my brief first impressions for first episodes of a lot of the anime I'm watching this season. Overall, this season so far has been pretty good. Um, so I guess I'm just going to start with Skeleton Knight in Another World. This is a good first episode, but I can't really form an opinion about this show yet. It's the reason why I started with this one. Just not enough happens in the episode for me to really kind of gauge where the show's going, but I do like how it started. I think the main character is interesting, and I would like to just point out the elephant in the room that this has a lot of similarities to Overlord. The main character is like an Ainz-like character, but instead of being a mage, he's a knight. But overall, I think it's going to be pretty good. I'm going to have to watch like one or two more episodes before I can really get an opinion on what I think about the show. Shikamori is not a cutie. I hate to say this because I really wanted to like this show, but so far it's kind of disappointing. The main character, Izumi, doesn't really have a whole lot of agency in the plot, at least within the first episode. I can't think of a single thing of significance he did throughout the entire episode. And yes, Shikamori is a cutie, but like the entire episode is her and Izumi just eye-goggling each other and not really much of a plot. I'm hoping it gets more interesting later on, so this is just my first impressions from the first episode. But so far, I'm not really into it all that much. I'm quitting heroing. So this show just blew me away with how good the first episode was. I like the premise. I like the characters. The main character, Leo, is like, I can't think of any character he's like. He's unique in that he's a good guy, but he's also kind of like kind of oblivious. I guess I should say. He's I mean he's your typical hero type character, but his personality is just, I can't put my hand on it, but his personality is just kind of out there. And the four generals seem to be pretty unique, colorful characters, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with him and the queen and what her backstory is. So it's a pretty interesting show. The next show is The Greatest Demon Lord is Reborn as a Typical Nobody. And this is another show that I could compare to a previous show from a previous season in that it has a lot in common with Misfit of Demon King Academy. I'd say the biggest difference is that Ard, the main character of this show, has a childhood friend, and he doesn't make friends for the first time in the academy like Anos did. But other than that, everything else about the show has a lot of Misfit of Demon King Academy vibes, and that's not a bad thing. I like the reincarnation gimmick, the overpowered magical character. Although he's not that overpowered compared to Anos. I'm going to be comparing this a lot to Anos going forward, but I what else can you compare it to, right? The next show is Trapped in a Dating Sim. The world of Otome games is tough for mobs. I can't believe how much I love this show. I was a huge fan of My Second Life as a Villainess, and this has a similar setup for the first 2 or 3 minutes of the first episode, and then it takes a completely different turn in that the main character is not really the main character in the story. He's kind of a background character, and I think that's pretty interesting. I like all the other background characters that we've been introduced so far, and I really, really am looking forward to the next episode of this. This is going to be one that I'm definitely going to be watching a lot closer than I thought it would be. Tomodachi Game. So Tomodachi Game seems to be very similar, at least right now where they're at, to Squid Game. and I love Squid Game, so I think this is going to be a great show. I think the characters, well, at least the main character is pretty interesting. Some of the side characters are interesting as well. The main character, though, and I'm no spoilers for the first episode if you haven't seen it, but the main character gets really interesting at the very end of the episode. So if you are kind of turned off by how one note the character is at the start, I would suggest continue watching because it definitely gets better in like the last few minutes of the first episode. Love After World Domination. I'm a huge fan of Power Rangers. I grew up with the original Power Rangers, so this premise just automatically seemed interesting to me. It's like if the Red Ranger like had a love affair with Rita Repulsa. That would be the best way to describe this. And it has like the art style and the animation kind of gives me some Osamu Tezuka vibes. So like, you know, Astro Boy, like that type of not really in the art style, but it seems like it was like at least partly inspired, or maybe I was just seeing that myself. But it's a really interesting show, and I'm really looking forward to how this ends. Aharen-san Wahakaranai. Sorry, I don't speak Japanese. But I still really, really, really like how the first episode started and how it ended. I'm gonna have more thoughts on this show in particular. I really do want to like whenever Solo is able to get back on and he's able to watch this show, I want to do a full podcast on this show in particular because I have a lot to say about this show. So I'm not gonna go too much into it here, but I think the characters are a lot more down to earth than what you see in a lot of high school dramas, and this is a show that I'm more into than I even originally thought I would be. I thought the premise was sort of interesting, but it was interesting in that it was kind of weird, and I thought it was going to be like, oh, something I can just watch occasionally whenever I have nothing else to watch. But this is a show I'm really wanting to follow a lot more closely. Date Alive Season 4. This is getting into my top 3 for the season. And I'd say Date Alive Season 4 definitely, I was expecting the world from this show, and it did not disappoint with that first episode. The first episode, it immediately starts like with Kurumi, which she's like the best, one of the best girls in Date Alive. So starting the episode off with her doing stuff was awesome. And then introducing the new girl, Nia, and them immediately just going into the date. That was a great way to start off a season, especially for people who've watched the previous 3 seasons of Date Alive. So if you're already a fan of Date Alive, yeah, you'll probably already watched this. But if you're not a fan of Date Alive, I would recommend watching seasons 1, 2, and 3, and then going into this. This is not something where I think somebody who isn't familiar with the previous seasons is going to be able to pick up on what's going on that easily. And the next show is Spy X Family. I really, really, really like this show. The main character, Twilight, although he ends up going by Lloyd for most of the episode, is a spy. I mean, if you read the premise, you probably at least know that much. But he's not like a bad, like, you know, like an evil spy or anything. He's actually a spy because he thinks he's doing what what he's doing is for the greater good of his country, and he seeing his worldview through the character Anya, which is the little girl, is very interesting. His and Anya's relationship in particular is what made this episode so great. It's one of the best first episodes I've seen in an anime in a while. So I don't want to go too much into this, but I will say this much, and once you watch the episode, you'll get what I mean, that the mama doesn't exist scene is probably going to be one of my favorite scenes in any show at all this season. I'm really, I can't emphasize enough that Spy X Family, it was hyped up, and it's living up to the hype. It's a show that if you were thinking that you were on the fence about, you should definitely be checking out. I can tell from the first episode that this is going to be something special. And for the last one, I saved the best, Rising of the Shield Hero Season 2. This season, like the first episode of this season, was just straight up fan service. I remember when Raphtalia and Philo finally showed up, I literally jumped out of my seat. This is like something I've been waiting for like, it seems like years now. I think it has been like years. This show has been like, we've been waiting for a season 2 for this for a while, and this is how you start out a season 2. You introduce all of the main characters. You give like all of the important characters moments to highlight why they were so great of characters to begin with. You introduce new characters in an organic way. Everything about the first episode of Rising of the Shield Heroes Season 2 has been phenomenal. It leaves a lot of questions that I'm hoping gets answered in this season, or maybe in a follow-up season, like who is the lady who appears at the end of the episode. I'm sure we're going to find that out in the next episode. And also, just on a little side note, what actually happened to the king? I'm not a reader of the light novel, although I might be going and picking up the light novel just so I can find out some more answers to some of these questions I'm having. But with that, I gotta say, so far this season hasn't disappointed. I know there's some shows that I have not covered that have episode ones out by the time this is going up, and I am planning on watching them, like that Executioner show. I can't remember what that's called, and I know there was like one or two others that I do intend to watch. I may not cover my first impressions for those shows, but I do eventually want to be able to do a podcast on each one of these shows whenever Solo is able to get around to it. So with that, if I'm excited for this season. Let me know what shows you've really enjoyed so far this season, what shows you're looking forward to that hasn't come out yet, and I will catch you in the next video.